For everyone present, welcome already.
We'll wait a few more minutes for everybody to arrive. Get a sign we can get started.
I think that was a sign we can get started, yeah. All right, welcome everyone to our first webinar, Sid and myself's first time on this specific topic also for Pointerpro, which we'll discuss today. The essence of professional services, which is in the sub-department of operations. And so let's get started. So today we're going to step into a few domains. Basically, we're going to present ourselves, so at least you know who you're talking to. We're going to try to give some insights on the different customer segments we are seeing based on our experience the past years. We will point out our center of competence. We have quite a lot of domains where we can make a difference on support and creating nice projects. Then the workflow and the timeline we will present, just to give an idea how long it takes if you initiate the project with us in average. There will be some use cases we can discuss to illustrate the different domains. And after that, there will be margin for yourselves to raise questions, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Right, so in terms of who's who, I'll present myself first. So I'm 𝗀𝗲𝗱𝗱. I'm customer support team lead on Pointerpro. I've been with Pointerpro for 4 years. I'm somewhat of an unofficial product expert, and I've been working in services before I was the support team leader. So I have some experience on best practices, but also on how you ideally want to set up your PDFs, but also questionnaires, etc.
All right, Michael Buchanan, Operations Director within Pointerpro. Despite not being younger than 𝗀𝗲𝗱𝗱, I'm actually younger as a Pointerpro agent. I'm only a year and a half within Pointerpro, and I'm leading operations, various departments. But like I said before, the service department is one of my keystones as an operations. Some fun facts. Obviously, we've been doing this a long time, so we gathered some insights on statistics. The past 5 years, we've been initiating more than 350 projects, so I think that's a nice reference case. We have actually 3 active building teams, which can assist each with their specification and their best practices. We have an average of more than 60 deals created per year. And the average process lifecycle, which we'll discuss further in the meeting, has an average of 3 weeks. So 3 weeks till final delivery since kickoff. So that's how you should see it. And we think, or at least the statistics show, that most of our customers are satisfied with the content creation, as we score an overall of 4 out of 5 on the CSAT score. We strongly believe in personal DNA, in the sense that we love to reach out before, during, and after the building process, which means that we will push forward a general accountable colleague, which will take care of the communication, will take care of the ownership within the build, on top of the building teams. And we strongly believe in intermediate iterations, which we usually try to initiate through check-ins with our customers. So if you have a building period of 3 weeks or 3 months, for instance, we can arrange intermediate check-ins with customers. We can also share samples, which will be UT and testing phasing. So we try to maintain short communication lines instead of initiating an agreement and then after 4 months initiating a delivery without any communication. That doesn't work. We're an agile company, so we try to make it dynamic. Our international audience is actually reflected in, I think, the most various parts in the world. If you look at the continents, so we have a broad international audience, which makes it interesting for us, to be honest, which means that every case is a unique case, and we try to make it as unique as possible on the matter of deliverables. We also have various branches. We have different business domains, which once again is a return value for both sides. Then to stand still a bit with who are our typical customers. We don't actually have typical customers, but we see 2 big segments these days. There are customers which have a great idea of what they want to build and where they want to land, but they need some assistance from at Pointerpro, the project teams. This is the hybrid seekers, if we call them like that, which means that they will start within a platform, will start to create content creation and development format, self-portal initiation and the functionality we have in our portal to some extent, and then they will seek assistance. It could be design, it could be scoring and logic, it could be graphs, you name it. But we are there to deliver the final flow, and so it's a cooperation method, and yeah, so we have quite a lot of those. The second group is clients which, once again, know where they want to land, but don't really know how to initiate it, or they have some time constraints, maybe some resource constraints, and they approach Pointerpro in full to say, look, we have an idea, how can your team make the difference on the matter of distressing and time gain on the matter of build? And their approach is a bit different, a bit more in-depth, obviously. So we sit together and we try to align expectations. We will do that formally in a statement of work. And the blueprint, so once that's been agreed, then we can initiate a roadmap, meaning a milestone, and the level of communication, the level of intermediate expectations we have to initiate. Do they want 3 checkups? Do they want intermediate drafts? Do they want multi-channel communication? So how can we approach that? And then on the matter of design, yeah, we see 2 aspects these days. So either they have a clear idea of brand book, which could be that there is a marketing agreement within the company of the customer and they want us to rebuild the marketing aspect, or they give us liberty of mind, and then we make some suggestions to see if we can level up the expectations of branding and marketing and design. Then the step over to the milestone, or the roadmap at least. So I mentioned before that we have an average of 3 weeks since sign-off till the final build. And next, this consists of 5 phases these days. So we have the discovery phase, budgeting phase, kickoff and governance, build, and final delivery phase. So I think it makes sense. The discovery phase is, yeah, like the word says it, discovering is often initiated by our sales department, which means that there will be a discovery call, there will be demo sessions in order to see if we can manage the needs, or we can fill in the dots a potential customer wants through services. Once that phase has been approved and there is an absolute necessity on building needs, then the next phase will be discussing the figures and the ins and outs on the matter of budgeting. It's also possible that we have a statement of work creation first before the actual sign-off. Once that's been done, we'll go over to the kickoff phase in the sense that we'll create a clear battle plan on who the team can, who the customer can depend on in-house on the matter of team creation and resource planning. And we'll also agree on the governance. It may sound unlogical that we stand still with that, but I mean, some customers, they want to be left alone and they just want a delivery point. Other customers want to be involved in the building phase, and that's all things we have to agree before we can actually build, so there isn't any disturbance towards the customer. Then final, the building phase starts, which obviously it's the most important phase on the matter of delivery creation. So there, once again, we can work with intermediate phasing, or we can just have a final delivery point. So one of our 3 teams will start building, and at the end, we're at the final goal, which is the delivery phase. There we deliver the actual phase and the report. And there we also will create a retro, meaning that if a customer is satisfied, we'll always ask what we can improve future-wise as a structural point of view.
All right, thanks for sharing, Michael. That was already very interesting. I'll go a bit deeper into specific topic fields. We've identified 5 of them, which we wanted to highlight in this webinar. So I'll give you some examples and screenshots after this slide. But I wanted to provide you an overview already. So one of them is scoring and logic. Next one will be content creation, the different kinds of contents that we will dive deeper into. Also, in terms of integration, we will focus, or we will stand still with database, but also different kinds of middleware. And then what custom designs and graphs could look like. All right, so if we take a look at content, an example, this is one of scoring and logic. So a very impressive slide with a lot of numbers, a lot of colors as well. Basically boils down to us allowing you to create segmentation and aggregation. So that's a combination of the two here. Segmentation in itself is basically splitting the content in different question blocks, but also seeing who has responded what answer to which question, and then grouping them. So you can see the upper arrow points to relationship, which has a sub score of connection and physiological safety. But also, if we look at pink, we do order, which contains activity consistency and activity impact. So you can see the twofold parts of those specific subscores. And then in terms of aggregation, this usually boils down to aggregating in terms of different teams or different organizations, but also different roles, as in self versus manager versus peers. In this example, we can see that we aggregate based on the organization average, also client average, which is then not the total population, but everybody within Pointerpro, for example. And then you can see your score, which means in this case that it's a manager score. So everybody gave feedback in regards to one individual manager, which is then how you could summarize or visualize the total summary of a questionnaire and also the PDF. On the next slide, we'll dive into complex calculations as well as conditional statements. I already wanted to highlight in terms of complex calculations, what we can do there. We have them by default are average, median, min and maximum scores, but also percentiles, which are part of the usual requirements from our customers. In terms of conditional statements, we allow for if and or logic, but also a combination of those three. It can go as complex as you want. We can do that with the default widget logic we have in-house, but we also have a more advanced way of setting this up with Vue.js, which is actually a conditional rendering, which can allow us to create conditional tables, also images and conditional HTML. So if we take a look at what that could look like, on the left-hand side, we can see the conditional logic. So there's a vertical split of different subscores. So you can see that there's low growth, strong growth, and then some other aspects as well. So if we could say that on a score or scale from 1 to 7, you have fixed versus growth, the raw score here was 5.5, which is then enough to provide subscore of low growth, which will then return a particular feedback or recommendations, best practices, etc., which is the part on the left side of the screen that you see highlighted in light blue. On the right-hand side, we can then show an example. It's a bit small, but it's me walking you through should do the trick here, which focuses on strategy, which is then one of the subscores of a given assessment. And then based on that subscore of 64 on strategy, you get particular feedback, you get particular examples, use cases, but also best practices, recommendations, etc. You can all display on one page, either via text, but also via images, via charts and graphs, etc. In terms of content creation, I mentioned before, we have a few different items that we could highlight, but we regularly get requested is in terms of questionnaire building, but also best practices, how to do this, how to make sure that contacts are added, how to make sure that people can be invited in the correct user flow. We also do PDF and data visualization, as Michael mentioned. Sometimes we get open-ended questions from people not exactly knowing what their final PDF could look like. So then we step in with a few examples as a part of the co-creation. We also help in setting up invitation flows, emails, but also email templates. We provide HTML content for emails to make sure that those can be branded as well. We also, in the past, have created dashboards, for example, with Google Data Studio. We have also our own dashboarding tool inside Pointerpro, which could also be referenced here, which can be made public, can be shared, etc. And we've also created an e-commerce platform for several customers already in the past, which of course is a bit more complex setup, but this is where then middleware and then integrations come in. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see an example of a very heavily customized questionnaire. If you're a bit familiar with how the Pointerpro questionnaires usually look, you should see that this is a very big difference in what we regularly offer. So this is more of a statement as to say the sky is the limit. We are basically able to adjust and create as crazy as you want with HTML and CSS. Of course, there's always the question of what is possible, what makes sense, returning back to the best practices. But this is one of the examples we have created, which we wanted to share here. Another example of a PDF and visualization that we've done before was for Ms. Jaya. So in this case, we have created 5, I believe, full page PDFs, I think 40 pages each. This included different personality types, let's call them, as well as conditional logic and conditional widgets being displayed, different redirects taking place, also different visuals, making sure that this was as close as possible as to the recommendations that we were displaying. This also eventually boiled down to a big success on their end, making them even featured on Netflix, if I believe correctly. So that was definitely exciting for us as well. In terms of integrations, I mentioned we wanted to focus on database and middleware. On the below side of the screen, you can see that this is an example flow of Make, which is basically a middleware we used to make sure that our eShop integration could communicate to our Pointerpro backend. So when somebody would make a purchase on WooCommerce, for example, you could say, or the logic would then segregate how many users have bought access, which survey or assessment did they bought access to, which permissions that need to be given, etc. So that's one of the highlights I wanted to bring forward here. In terms of database, this is typically used as a benchmarking, but also percentile calculation tool. So some of the calculations we can do inside Pointerpro. In some cases, those calculations need to be done outside of Pointerpro because of complexity, but also of longitudinal reporting. For example, if you want to reference legacy data of already collected responses, this is a typical use case. In terms of middleware, we have created, or we have moved forward with this in the past in terms of custom APIs, us creating custom APIs for you, but also working with webhooks, pushing to Google Sheets on your end, but also databases you own on your end. We've used middleware to create and set up payment portals, as the example below with Make, which is also an example of e-commerce integration and setup. Then for the last point, I wanted to also highlight a few examples on the custom charts that we can do. Basically, there are 4 points that I wanted to highlight here, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but also custom charts. If you're a bit familiar with web development, you know that the 3 building blocks are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML can be used for tables, iframes, and, for example, custom buttons, which can also be referenced in emails, but also in the questionnaire, in the PDF. CSS is mainly used for branding purposes. So as Michael mentioned, we regularly get a request together with a brand book, which is then where we use CSS to make sure that those align, which can include fonts, custom colors, backgrounds, font sizes, families, but also link behavior, hover behavior, etc. So we can go as complex as we want. And then for JavaScript, for this you should read or think about custom calculations or custom behavior. So if the default behavior of the questionnaire app or the PDF generator doesn't meet your fancy, then we could always use JavaScript to create a custom behavior for that. On the right-hand side here, we can see an example of a custom chart we've created in the past, which is 4 colors are basically different subscores. You can see that there's some individual questions with the different cells being colored, but there's also the inner circle, which is then more of a general overview or a general statement featuring an individual manager, I believe, was the case here as well. If you take a look at 2 additional charts we have created, on the right-hand side, you can see a diverging bar chart, which is not a typical use case, but it's a use case we get requested on the regular as well. On the left-hand side, we can see a bar chart which displays min and max scores of a given population, but also the mean score, I believe, is what the black line signifies. And then on the right-hand side, I believe you can see the green square is where you can see the team average. So those kind of calculations are also included and are definitely possible with our custom chart options. On the right-hand side, maybe to focus on that one again, you can see that there's positive and negative, usually for diverging bar charts. In this case, the example question was included as well, as in English Premier League goals scored and conceded. So on the top, you can see that Manchester City conceded 23 goals, where the positive, they scored 95 goals. So this is a typical use case of a very nice visually appealing chart.
All right, thank you, 𝗀𝗲𝗱. I've had the feeling we just started and I think we've come to the end already. So I think we maintained our time frame. So yeah, there are some questions popping up in the chat, maybe at the liberty of running through them. So Alejandro, thanks for popping in the question. Does it take only 3 weeks from phase 1 to phase 5 to delivery? Well, as we said before, in principle, yes, but it's an average. I mean, so if you go for a custom demand or a custom chart, it could take a bit more time, but we try to maintain a good time spent. So that's why, like mentioned before, the governance phase is very important, so we can align expectations on that. But in general, yes, average 3 weeks. Max has a question. Do we have to provide you an example on how a report would look like, or can we come up with a copy and design for us? Well, both, Max. So once again, there are customers which are providing us a clear picture, a clear brand book, and they ask us to reproduce it, and that's fine, and we'll do our best extent to recreate the expectation there. Other customers have a bit of liberty of mind and say, okay, if you can prove some examples based on your experience, based on your best practices on the matter of design or functionality, please come up with some ideas. We're also doing that. So we do both. It's obviously not often that we have a combination within one customer, but it's either situation one, A or B. Just a new question popping up from Rohit. What many do we have to submit to let you know to identify the time estimate and budget estimate for a project comprising of both a complex survey linked with the PDF report? It was a long question. So there it is. Complex service. I mean, complex is a relative thing. I mean, it could be complex well, from the beginning, but once we step in and we discuss it, it could clarify stuff. So we try to, once again, focus on this personal touch so we can clear the sky from both ends. But to answer your question, any doubts, questions, or insecurities or hesitancies about budgets and timelines, they will be clarified within building phase, well, in phase 2, meaning that before the budget approval and the sign-off, they should be clear towards a potential demand.
It's included in the SOW, right?
Absolutely,
so it should be part of the timeline. It should be very transparent as well, as into when will we do what, and by which time you will have your product in hands.
Just waiting if there is anything else popping up. Rohit is an avid questionnaire, so just gonna wait till the question pops up. So we have a contact dedicated to queries. Once again, the contact consists of a dedicated spokesperson within the service team, which will usually be the service manager or the project manager. But we also try to extend expertise and dedication. So it often happens that we ask one of our technical builders to step in customer-facing calls. So once again, we are aligned and we don't waste the customer's time in that. So we do both, but the first dedication point of view on customer-facing is usually the project manager.
Right.
Okay, I think we got to wrap up things here.
Yep.
Thank you very much for everyone for attending. Hope it made sense, and we'll maybe see you soon. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.